With Martha, Genoa, and any and all of the remaining bandits wiped off the map, we can finally make our way towards the last castle of Chapter 1. Sigurd tweaks out after seeing a woman for the first time, and we now have to deal with Jamke's forces, who are moving through the Spirit Forest at a snail's pace. Whilst we begin our most enthralling of marches towards the enemy forces, Du turns on the charm as he proudly commits a serious dishonesty offense and gifts Aideen the only warp staff in the game. Unlike other games, the warp staff can only warp you from castle to castle rather than anywhere on the map. So yeah, it sucks. But hey, it's a good resource for staff grinding. Out of the current batch of enemies, our most obvious threat is Jamke, who is the peak example of clickbait in Fire Emblem. He joins with a killer bow and a whole host of skills that let him prolong combat, meaning he's the ideal unit for arena runs. But in reality, he's a fraud. He doesn't even have the pursuit skill at base, he only has it as a class skill, meaning he's essentially an infinitely worse dad than Medea. But his inability to pass on pursuit to his kids might actually have uses in this playthrough. But anyway, back to his combat. Anything he comes in contact with has a decent enough chance of dying on command, due to his 3 skills which he joins with at base. And as our 2 Nihil users both have pursuit, we don't actually have anyone who can act as effective bait, and Jamke's main weakness isn't his mediocre parenting skills, but rather, it's the fact that he's unmounted in Horse Emblem. But here in his joining chapter, he's in a forest, meaning his greatest weakness is a non-factor. So in other words, in this one singular encounter, Jamke is arguably the strongest individual enemy unit that we've had to face so far. But that aside, we are actively playing peak Genealogy of the Holy War, as we move our units for 5 turns of nothing, as we wait for the eventual clash. We don't venture too far into the forest, since all of our combat units, except the Du himself of course, are mounted, and thus, if we get ensnared by too many bandits at once, we get wiped out due to a lack of retreat. Lex fills in the Ardent-shaped hole in our heart as he once again acts as the leading bait of our army, and Ethlin then feeds the stray bandit's soul to the Silver Sword. I mention this because we gotta start farming kills early if we ever want to get that sweet 50 kill bonus from the Silver Sword. We trail along the edges of the forest as we drive them towards Martha, and Jamke leads his forces with himself being at its apex. And then, I realize something. We have no actual use for Jamke. Like, at all. He has pursuit for 1. His killer bow is completely useless to us since we can't use Medea for 2. And for 3, I plan on pairing Aideen with Claude so that I could have access to the rescue staff glitch for the early maps of Gen 2. Ethlin leads the offensive and manages to successfully lower Jamke's HP to below 50%. And all we need now is someone to chip in to snatch the kill before Jamke crits anyone to death. I consider deploying Noish to do the deed, but his hit rate is absolutely atrocious for a sword user, and he has to rely on one of his skills proccing to actually finish off Jamke. And so instead, we have to use Quan. But the issue is that the forest tiles actually stop him from reaching Jamke, meaning he can't attack unprovoked, and is instead forced to go to 2 range with him, meaning if he misses, we're forced to brace for Jamke's 94% chance to counterattack, and each individual hit from Jamke is a chance for 3 different skills to proc. With our 70% chance to hit with a javelin, we initiate combat. And we miss. Losing Quan means losing Ethlin, and our army would literally just be Noish, Du, and Lex barely holding things together, with Aideen crying in a corner somewhere. But Quan then decides to clutch up with an adept proc and finishes off Jamke before he could counterattack, meaning we now have the tip of the enemy's spear thoroughly blunted. With Jamke down, the enemy forces split into 2, with one half continuing to meet our advance towards the south of the forest, and the other half slowly retreating deeper into it. We mug one bandit with Du, and then accidentally proc a lover's crit with Ethlin, finishing him off before I could feed the kill to someone who isn't promoted. Lex follows up as he attempts to get a kill with exact damage on a bandit, but he then decides to miss a 92% and gets hit by a 52. After this, Quan keeps up the bad RNG and misses a 72%, and the enemy continues to retreat as we clean up the bandits that decided to stay with us. Noish manages to proc a cost, and then proceeds to actually gain stats on a level up this time. We decide to take the fight to them with some reasonable success. Do manages to get some more successful muggings in, and can actually move pretty well in this forest terrain. And Ethlyn triggers another Lover's Crit, because she's just crazy like that. Noish then triggers another cost proc, but I mean, he only really triggers these when there's no immediate danger in this situation. It's like he's taking the mick out of me with his blank, soulless stare. But yeah, see guys, I'm using Noish. Are you happy now? Do and Noish then close up on the bandits who stopped retreating, and Noish then gets hit by a 19%. The enemy AI then continues to keep these two bandits stationary as they stand next to and fully embrace each other. Noish then charges in, misses a 90%, gets hit by a 19%, triggers a cost, lands the 90 this time, and then gets hit by another 19%, again, in the same round of combat. But have no fear, for Ethlyn is here, and she just heals Noish back to near full, and procs a pretty nice level off of it. Noish then triggers an Accost proc again, which he's been doing to a middling degree of success, and he then proceeds to only level up HP. We continue feeding Noish because everyone in the comment section tells me to, and he actually manages to trigger Accost 2 times in one singular combat round. I mean, of course he doesn't actually one-round the bandit, and he gets hit by a 90% hit in retaliation, but no. He's better than Alec for some reason. I just haven't found it out why yet. After giving the last kill to Ethlyn, we finally cleared the Spirit Forest, and things finally get interesting. You see, the boss here, generic Dark Bishop guy, has access to a Fenrir Tome, a long distance form of dark magic which can two-shot most of our units. Typically we'd get Sigurd to advance towards the next castle and recruit Deirdre, who has a silent staff, which would make the boss easier to approach and slay while he's defanged. However, because of the fact that we're unable to use Deirdre due to not being able to use units for our pursuit, we can't actually use that approach. And thus, we approach the castle with the full intention of facing off against the Fenrir Tome head first. Before heading off to get our army's heads blown off by dark magic, Lex ventures off to gain his Brave Axe from a secret event, and Ethlyn's Higher Void makes her the perfect substitute bait. Noish gets in some work with an Accost proc, which really doesn't amount to much, but hey, it happened. And just as I sympathize with Noish, he goes on to miss at 94%. Lex gains his Brave Axe and we form a mini wall between the trees to protect Aideen. Do puts in some elbow grease as he dodge tanks arrows like it's no man's business, but 3 bandits decide to bypass our wall by making their approach through the trees instead. Trees that we can't travel through due to the Fenrir Tome, might I add. And so, our human barricade strategy, which we've been relying on thus far, won't exactly work here. As part of our counter-offensive, Do commits theft, and Quan triggers a Lover's Crit after an Adept proc which would have killed the enemy anyway. Bro thinks Eurofarming is a legitimate strategy. But hey, if it works, it works. Ethlyn then chips a bandit, whilst Noish fumbles lethal, because of course he does. Noish puts us on high alert as he gets hit by a 25% hit, and is now one singular axe hit away from certain death. And to follow up on this excellent stroke of luck, Noish gets hit by a 35% hit from a bow this time, and goes from one axe hit away from death, to one stray leaf blown in his general direction away from death. Thankfully, the enemy AI is as stupid as me, and Do becomes an arrow magnet who the enemy targets instead of the nearly dead Noish. He manages to dodge a majority of these guys, before getting struck by a 10%, meaning we're in a bit of a pickle here. Lex finally rejoins the army after his detour, only to miss a slightly biased coin toss. But don't worry, cause Do's been hitting the gym, and gets in on some of the cleanup action himself. After securing a kill, Noish retreats back to our previously thwarted wall formation, and gets in some much needed healing. Lex then gets under heavy fire and misses an 86%, but the Do himself continues to be an arrow stud as he continues to bait out the remaining archers. With the player phase finally reached, and Lex finally able to engage in one-round combat with the enemy, the Brave Axe can finally get a chance to shine, as Lex attacks twice in one singular round of combat. A sight I am not used to seeing. And get this, he actually one-rounds a Chapter 1 bandit. Now I don't care what you say, but that's flippin' insane. Dude then mugs a bandit and gets hit by a 20%. But hey, he gets 2k rather than the usual 1, on top of leveling up strength. So I'll happily take that trade. The remaining archers provide no real challenge, as we trap one, and Aideen baits and dodge tanks the other. It is worth knowing that the archer we trapped does desperately cling to life, as he dodges Lex's 76% from the Brave Axe, as well as Shinoshi's follow-up with a similar percentage, but he falls to the Silver Sword all the same. Nosh continues to be a fraud as he misses a 74% hit, but it's nothing that our remaining units can't clean up. And with that, all that's left is Verdane Castle itself. Right off the bat, Sandima's hit rate is scarily high, with Quan only being able to trade a 48 for 100, essentially nigh guaranteeing his death during enemy phase. We could theoretically further staff grind Ethlin like before, but it just won't make up for the difference in firepower. Just to test the waters, I brought Dew in range of the boss, and this guy has a 40% hit on our fastest unit, and is 1 point of magic short from straight up one-shotting him. If we hadn't been doing our best to grind little bro, he would not be here with us right now. We advanced Quan through a forest, whilst leaving Dew in the same tree. And although I may sound stupid for doing this, but I assure you dear viewer, leaving my units in range of the enemy boss's siege tome is essential for us to beat Chapter 1. We confirm that Dew is in fact very much susceptible to death by Satan magic, as he once again barely hangs on to dear life. With this highly coveted piece of knowledge, we can safely conclude that we can leave Dew in range of the enemy to act as bait, and we further our approach to the enemy boss. But as we progress, for some reason, Sandima targets Quan instead of Dew. I have no idea why, but he just did. And thus, forget everything I just said in the past minute. The next target for Sandima is Aideen, who dodges and also has a very respectable resistance stat, so we can slowly and surely solidify our advance. Once we close enough distance, we opt in towards praying for Lover's Crit on Ethlin, which doesn't work because, of course it doesn't. You should already know by watching me so far that my units only actually trigger their skills for style points, and nothing else. But anyway, Ethlin does do some pretty good damage against him, so hey, it's progress. Dew once again gets targeted, meaning we can resume our offensive with Ethlin. The next enemy phase comes, and this time, Quan gets the Fenrir hit. But that's nothing for us to fear, as Ethlin now has lethal on Sandima, and she triggers a Lover's Crit, when she already had the kill guaranteed. Well, what did I tell you folks? What did I tell you? Ethlin gains the magic ring, and at the very least, I can proudly say that I've defeated Sandima without the Silent Staff. But there's actually one slight issue. We didn't have to do all that. You see, our main fear was that we couldn't recruit Deirdre to use the Silent Staff. But there's two issues with that. For one, we could have just traded the staff off Deirdre using the pawn shop. And for two, I lied. Deirdre doesn't even have the pursuit skill. I was straight up tripping whilst playing this, and gaslit myself into thinking she had it for some reason. You see, I'm so used to the Orotome being a very heavyweight book, like so heavy that in law it weighs more than an axe, so I just assumed that's why she never doubled. But no, she never doubles because she is physically unable to. But hey, at least I got the alternate conversation which you get if you recruit Deirdre after defeating Sandima. So that's pretty neat, I guess, even though I've already read it 1,000 times. But anyway, I've already spent an unholy amount of time on this chapter, so I wrap up the map, and can finally say that I have successfully completed chapter 1 of this game after like 2 months. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.